2022 has been an interesting year, to say the least.
At the cusp of the Anthropocene, the current geological era defined by the overwhelming impact of human activity on the Earth and its environment, the relationship between the planet and its inhabitants has seen significant progress and disruptions. The scale and scope of these impacts are magnified when we consider that our numbers have crossed the 8 billion mark, and as human activities continue to impact the planet reacts in kind.
Natural disasters and climate shifts, patterns in human and animal migrations, shifts in planetary society, and the population boom. There is no escaping this cyclical relationship. But we hope to look back at the previous year and put these cycles into perspective on a planetary scale. Let's take a look at some of the most significant trends in 2022 as we look to the future of the planet and its citizens. 2022 saw a degree of return to normalcy and the early signs of recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. According to official sources, COVID-19 has claimed approximately 6.7 million lives globally.
Of these, 1.9 million were reported from March to December 2020, 3.57 million were reported in 2021, and 2022 saw 1.22 million deaths.
Only 0.5 million of these deaths occurred after March 2022. The Economist's machine learning model estimates that actual deaths due to COVID-19 are 2 to 4 times higher than reported. So are we out of the woods just yet? Well, new variants continue to come up. Public health experts predict early 2023 will see a rise in global cases. With 69.1% of the world population vaccinated, overall immunity should be better, with 13.17 billion doses administered globally. But mitigation and disease control are far from over. China's overturn of the zero-COVID policy has caused a massive wave of infections for the first time in 3 years. Experts fear a new variant developing out of the rapid spread of the disease in the most populous country on Earth. Directly linked to COVID and exacerbated by other global developments, global poverty rose for the first time in a generation during the first year of the pandemic and is now back to declining, but at an extreme slow rate of only 2% per year. Increasing private and public debt in the world continues to threaten equitable recovery from the crisis. 2022 did not have the highest number of natural disasters reported. 2021 did. However, 2022 saw a massive rise in deaths due to drought and floods, out of which around 1,800 deaths alone were recorded in Pakistan's extreme monsoon floods. Casualties from earthquakes and extreme weather saw a significant decline in 2022. But death is not the only indicator of damage done by natural disasters and climate change. Climate-induced migration also has a major impact, counting up to 20 million individuals displaced annually. Taking the example of Nigeria, where flooding caused 600 deaths, but also displaced 1.4 million individuals. According to a report released by the World Weather Attribution, flooding in Nigeria and elsewhere in West Africa was made 80 times more likely by climate change.
In Pakistan, floodwaters are still present in 11 districts of the country since August 2022, with 8 million people living close to them.
The economic damage, on the other hand, can be rounded up to $40 billion, whereas a total of 33 million people were affected overall in Pakistan. And all of this after experiencing one of the hottest summers on record too. And things were also heating up elsewhere on the planet. 2 separate extreme heat waves hit Europe in mid-June and mid-July, affecting hundreds of millions of people. More than 20,000 people died across Europe in this summer's heat waves, in temperatures that would have been virtually impossible without climate breakdown. China experienced floods in June, causing a mass evacuation, and in August received the driest summer since 1961, badly affecting Yangtze River, which supports 450 million people and a third of the country's crops. All of that considered, I think it's safe to say the climate chickens have come home to roost. A perfect example of that cyclical curse of human activity changing the planet's natural systems and the changes in the natural systems disrupting human activity in unprecedented ways. Last year, citizen number 8 billion joined us roughly 12 years after citizen number 7 billion was born back in 2011. And a 12 to 13-year period has been the standard for adding an additional billion to the population for a few decades now. Sound familiar? We did an explainer on this, which you might want to check out for for more details. But honestly, we keep forgetting that humans aren't the only inhabitants of our planet, and other species aren't reflecting the population boom that humans have seen. It's actually quite the opposite. A UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's report says 1 in 10 species is likely to face a very high risk of extinction. Scientists have also warned up to 90% of the coral reefs will vanish in the next 3 decades. And according to the 2022 Living Planet Index, the world's wildlife populations have plummeted by 69% since 1970. The Global Biodiversity Framework has made significant commitments to turning these figures around in the COP15 summit in December. This is a last-ditch effort to contain an extinction rate tens to hundreds of times higher than the past 10 million years. I know, it sounds bleak, and I don't want to sugarcoat it for you. The Earth's planetary health isn't doing well, but there's been more cause for respite this year too. Here's a few mitigation plans that give us hope. The Global Shield Financing Facility has committed to providing protection funding and insurance to countries suffering from climate disasters. Parties to the UN Convention on Biological Diversity committed to protecting 30% of the Earth's lands, oceans, coastal areas, and inland waters, and to reduce harmful government subsidies by $500 billion and cut food waste in half. All of this by 2030. The Inflation Reduction Act invested $369 billion in clean energy projects and incentives for energy-efficient technology such as electric vehicles. This move has put one of the world's largest environmental polluters on a fast track to replacing over 80% of its traditional energy production to green energy within the decade. Confirmation that the plants will save us. Scientists are embarking on an $11 million project to hack photosynthesis to suck out more carbon from the air. And they're setting up greenhouses at the bottom of the sea to save water and habitable land. And lastly, we've seen a rise in the global rewilding movement. Scotland is well on its way to becoming the first rewilded nation, bringing dormant forests back to life. And the US approved a plan to demolish 4 dams in California to restore critical salmon habitats. I know. There's been some good and a whole lot of bad stuff that's come to pass in 2022. But we can't dwell on the bad and not do anything about it. We've got to start making a difference, because this is truly a battle for our survival. Here's looking at 2023 and remembering to play our part in building responsible behaviors that are good for us and for the planet that we inhabit. If you found this video interesting, leave us a like, comment below, and subscribe to our channel.